Alright y'all, things are getting exciting now. This is what is called the home stretch, where the end is in sight. There are still a lot of details. I mean, obviously I have pretty much the whole vehicle here. At least that's what it looks like. But I guarantee there are still a lot of small details to be worked out. Okay, I apologize for the odd cut there, but some wrenches were thrown into my plans. Long story short, motor mounting comes next. I wanted to run 17.5 in this thing to start with. Way back in the day, long time ago, I got this motor, the Track and Field Z5, 17.5 from Dual Sky, made by Dual Sky. Got it from ckhobby.com. Remember them? Yeah, ckhobby.com. Good people. And this is a great time to use this. I have not used this motor yet. I haven't used a good 17.5 with adjustable timing, censored and all. So I picked this up, and this is stuff that got cut out. I picked it up and started trying to mount it up, and then I realized that it's just not going to fit into this chassis, getting the motor holes lined up without cutting from the chassis. So I either need to cut from up here, or I need this area, or I need to cut from down in there. And I'm just not looking to cut up this brand new chassis just yet. Not yet. That kind of messed me up in one way, but made life simpler in another, because I'm going to run this in my buggy, because right now it's winter time in California. There's not a lot of on-road driving being done in my area. My local track is NorCal Hobbies. They do not have an indoor on-road track anymore, just outdoor, and that's cold and slippery. But indoor off-road still very strong. 17.5 class for buggy. I'm going to put this motor into my buggy, which left me to figure out what motor I'm going to put into here. And I decided, you know what, trick it. If I am going to run a different motor, I'll just go ahead and run a mod motor in it, get a little more power and excitement out of it. I've got this Leopard 8.5 that I have not used before, and there's actually something very specific that I want to do with it, and this vehicle will be perfect for what I'm gonna do. Alright, so never mind guys, this isn't gonna fit either. I realized as I got a little bit closer to it that this was still actually keeping the motor from going flat against the motor mount. So this is a major issue of concern for me, and probably should be for a bunch of folks, that motor clearance around this piece with your motor terminals can be an issue with some brands of motors. I've just confirmed it with two completely different motors with different designs, different styles of terminals, and both of them would need this to be cut out a good amount. I'm still not interested in cutting that out though for right now. So what I'm going to do is finally break the seal on this ancient part, a little motor mount plate made for the TA03. It's supposed to go on this side where you've got a plastic plate, but I'm going to use it in between the motor and the motor mount plate here, spacing the motor to the left towards you a little bit. It should be 3 millimeters, I believe. It should be the thickness. That should allow me to still have a decent amount of, a respectable amount of surface area directly in contact with the motor mount to transfer heat and move this out enough to give me clearance there. And yeah, just going to do that right now. Alright, I don't even know how much time has passed in that last little cut right there. It's estimated at about an hour or so. I always know that these last detail steps on these builds are going to take a lot longer than expected, especially on road chassis where they really don't give you a lot of provisions for standard electronics, and they really require one very specific method of routing wires around. But this one is really trying me. First with the motor thing, that's a pain. Then over here on this side, getting these motor wires to pass through the belt without rubbing on the top end of the belt. I had to rig up a little jig on this side to keep the wires down on the outside. Pushes them out a little bit farther than I want, creates a weird cross, but hopefully that will hold it on there. Actually, just for a little bit more peace of mind, I'm going to put an extra zip tie around this guy from this side. And I know that there have to be some on-road elitists out there who are just appalled that I would put a Castle Creations ESC in a TA06 or any sort of halfway decent sedan, but there's a very specific reason for it, and that'll be revealed at a later date. It has to do with why I chose this motor also. It's a completely separate thing, but it's going to work just fine. Yeah, it's a little bit on the heavy side, but Tamiya in their own manual, they show a big hobby wing ESC as a sample, one of the larger, like a 120 amp version. So that's pretty close in size to this. So if they think it's okay, I think it's okay too. And I've made it fit now. I need to be able to swap out motors and stuff like that. So I'm just going to stay with the 4mm connectors and just jumper these across, just solder it up. And then I can start looking at installing the servo over here. Okay, so the belt definitely wants to migrate all the way out to the edge down there for some reason. Maybe it's because I've got a little bit of angle here, and whatever the case may be, it looks like everything is good now. So now I can properly hook up the servo, complete that process. You get to actually assemble a servo saver with parts from here and some plastic parts and stuff. Why do these things never center by default? They're always off by half a tooth. No matter what, I end up having to change my sub trim. Oh well. Okay, you're supposed to put a second loom. I didn't realize this until now. Supposed to put a second loom over right here to hold the wires in a little bit straighter going across the chassis. I'm not going to do that because I don't need it, because I've already run my wires pretty tightly here, so I'm happy with how close they're staying together. The bottom loading battery door is something I've been looking forward to checking out since early on, and there it is. And it's got an interesting little setup, 3x8mm countersunk screws at either corner, and then they use these little O-rings that go over, little silicone rubber O-rings that go over the other side to hold those in place. To try to keep the screws from coming out, because to access your battery you do need to remove these 4 screws, it appears, every time. So nothing convenient about that. 4 Phillips screws need to be removed to access your battery or to change it. And it looks like there's not enough room to attach the terminals of one of these standard batteries with the 4mm terminals, plug-in terminals at either end. So this is definitely not going to work at this end. To make this work, I would need to put the battery in the other way and drill out some holes to attach down at this end. There's also room for the battery to move back and forth, so you'd need to make up for that space, because that's not good. That's going to be chafing things. It's also going to be changing your center of gravity just a little bit. But the fact that I can't just plug this in, that is extremely annoying and difficult to believe. Looks like they've got a nice space for wires to come right out the middle, either out the back or bending through here for a pack that has the wires directly in it coming out through the center. So that would work out just fine. But this is a no-go without modification. Let's see about this style with wires coming off to the side. Yeah, that works. I've got to say, this has not been one of my favorite builds to date by any stretch, in any way. The vehicle, I've not done my research on this, but the vehicle appears to share some parts trees from other vehicles, and it uses various little adapter techniques to make them work on this one. The restrictiveness of the motor mount, I'm not happy with that at all. The way that the ESC gets hung way off the side, it's not all that uncommon for ESCs to be hanging off the side, but in this one in particular, you've got the battery down the middle, so it's way far out there. Normally you'll see that being more common with the standard battery on one side, motor on the other layouts, and then you'll have a narrow chassis with the ESC about here. This one gets stuck out here. This is a somewhat large ESC, but it's not that big. It's really chassis layout that is primarily responsible for how far that sticks out, and that's definitely going to get hit easily anytime you get T-boned in corners. That's not good. What else here? The servo is not quite so bad. It does have a little cage around it here. It can get hit right here, but at least directly from the side, it's got something protecting it. And usually body will start to transfer some of the force first from a lower position, but it still can get hit. But again, that's just because of the overall layout. What else? Yeah, the battery thing, and the fact that the battery tray requires that you use 4 Phillips head screws to get it open every time, and it's still a little bit of a wedging process that you need to go through to make that work. Oh boy, this is not going to work here with this sticking out. My little balance adapter, that needs to be bent in. Need to make sure that doesn't get in the way of the belt. The way the wires come around the belt right here, that's fine. That's handled just fine. I wish there was one more loom on the other side, something optional. You could adjust the height just to put the wires through at the height where you want it, but I got that worked out. That's okay. These shocks are wonderful on the Pro kit. They are just absolutely amazing for the size that they are. The static friction is absolutely minimal. There is a little bit of play in the ball ends, unfortunately, especially up here at the top. So that's too bad. But the layout of the vehicle on the whole, I get it and I respect it. The build and what you need to go through to make it work, I don't really appreciate at all. But there it is. It is complete, save for tires. I'll actually put my own wheels and tires on there. This does use +2 offset wheels, unfortunately, about 189. So the +2s are required to get the full width if you want to get full width. Wish they didn't do that. Over here again, it's about 185 or 188.5, I'd say. But I'm just going to drop on my own pre-mounted tires, which unfortunately are on 0 degree offset wheels, unless I can find some older ones from a few years back that are on some +2s. But I should be able to plug this thing in now, and need to center up the servo and such, but there she goes. And that needs to be reversed, but it's working. So that's it for this build. Thanks for following along. I will take some studio shots of this as it is right now in its current form before I mount everything up. Then I will paint up the body and see about getting this thing out on the road. Bye for now.